morning, I'm Ebony Brandon. Today is Tuesday, 6th February 2018. This is the SKN News Now Evening Edition. In the headlines tonight, nationally, the government heads to court against Dr. Denzel Douglas on February 26th. Internationally, 40 people have been killed in Syrian and Russian airstrikes near Damascus. And in sport, the West Indies A team will play a 3-match Caribbean series against the England Lions. We have the details of these stories, the weather and Carib update straight ahead in tonight's edition of SKN News Now. The first round of the new legal battle between the government and opposition leader Right Honorable Dr. Denzel Douglas will take place on February 26th. On this date, the parties involved in the government claim brought against Dr. Douglas will head to the High Court, where they will seek to have the court determine Dr. Douglas's eligibility to serve as a member of Parliament. At the root of the challenge is information which came to light that Dr. Douglas holds a diplomatic passport of the Commonwealth of Dominica. Under the Constitution of St. Christopher and Nevis, a person who voluntarily acquires citizenship of another country or who has sworn an oath of allegiance to another country is ineligible to hold elected office. Dr. Douglas has on several occasions said that he is only a citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis and has denied swearing an oath of allegiance to another country. His attorney, Dominican Queen's Counsel Anthony Astephen, has since said that to be issued a Dominican diplomatic passport, the government of that country does not require persons to become citizens or to swear an oath of allegiance. Mr. Astephen has also said that there is a reasonable explanation, which he will present to the court, as to why the diplomatic passport states Dr. Douglas's nationality is Dominican. The fixed date claim form number 8 of 2008 was filed with the High Court Registry on January 22nd this year, pursuant to Section 36 of the Constitution of St. Christopher and Nevis, Section 12 of the National Assembly Elections Act, Cap 2(1), as a matter between the Attorney General of St. Kitts and Nevis, claimant, and Dr. Denzel Douglas, defendant. The Attorney General is seeking a declaration from the court that Dr. Douglas should be required to vacate his parliamentary seat, as since his election to the National Assembly in the February 2015 elections, he would have become disqualified from serving in the National Assembly, as by his own act is in accordance with the laws of the Commonwealth of Dominica under acknowledgement of allegiance, obedience, or adherence to a foreign power or state. An injunction barring Dr. Douglas from taking his seat in the National Assembly is also being sought on the basis of the government argument that he has vacated his seat. Dr. Douglas, meanwhile, is not rolling over and playing dead on the matter and continues to insist that the government move is baseless and designed only to hurt his reputation. The opposition leader is adamant that the government knows that while he may hold another passport, he's not a citizen of any country other than St. Kitts and Nevis. Dr. Douglas has also heavily slammed the Attorney General, Honorable Vincent Barron, for wasting the court's time and the people's tax dollars pursuing this case against him when there are matters of far more serious nature facing the Federation.
It's really amazing that the Attorney General can find time to go on what appears to be a political witch hunting, but he doesn't have time, it would appear, to ensure that the justice system works to bring justice to so many people who have become victims of crime here in St. Kitts and Nevis. So many unsolved murders, so many unsolved criminal activities, charges of sexual abuse of our women right in his chambers. But he finds time, it would appear, to go after some kind of witch hunting for Dr. Douglas in order to distract the attention of the public from the real political issues of the day, which impact upon how people are living and how their living standards have seriously deteriorated for the last 3 years under the Harris regime.
Dr. Douglas has also suggested that the court action taken is one of retaliation over the embarrassment the Dr. Timothy Harris-led administration feels over the fact that he was able to obtain a diplomatic passport from another country after being denied one by the St. Kitts and Nevis government.
The court matter pertaining to the diplomatic passport, it's a matter that is unfortunately in court. What can I say? What can I say? I don't have anything else to say except to emphasize that Harris has become so embarrassed over the fact that he refused to issue a diplomatic passport to the former Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis in my person, that my colleagues, 3 of them, came forward and offered to give me diplomatic privileges through a passport. 3. And it would appear as if Dr. Harris had been so hurt by the attack that was launched on him when he undermined the Dominica Citizenship by Investment Program and the Antigua and Barbuda Citizenship by Investment Program by launching this hurricane fund that started the race of our program and the program in the Caribbean to the bottom. He has been so embarrassed over the whole incident that he is trying to hang on to some kind of evading tactics by taking a matter like this to court. Absolute nonsense. Because my understanding is that once there is the issuance of a diplomatic passport, there is no need for any allegiance to be given to any country. It is bogus and fake that they are claiming that I have a second citizenship. They know I do not have a second citizenship. It is wasting people's time. It is wasting taxpayers' money. And it is trying to take up our time, as has been taken up over the last 5 minutes trying to respond to it. So I shall leave it.
In other news, former Health Minister Honorable Marcella Livet has expressed concern over the fact that Labour Minister Honorable Vance Amory has tried to downplay the medical complaints of persons working at the Department of Labour. During the first sitting of Parliament this year, Minister Amory appeared to question the reports of illness lodged by staff, many of whom have submitted medical certificates issued by licensed doctors in the Federation. While he did not name them, Mr. Amory also singled out 2 persons in particular who he suggested had a history of complaining of being ill at their former workplaces. Ms. Livet remarked that this is worrying but also an unfortunate trademark of the Team Unity administration, which, according to her, constantly attempts to hamper freedom of speech. The Central Bastia MP says this, combined with a host of other incidents over the last 3 years of the Harris administration, are all clear signs of the government's general lack of respect for its employees and the people of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Under this current leadership that we have, everyone's speech is being stifled. They're going onto Facebook pages, calling people and telling them to take down their posts, people who work in government service, threatening them with their jobs. People can't call into any stations. They're in the offices saying you can't listen to this station and that station. They put on whatever station, only what they say. There are now systems in government headquarters to listen to people's conversations. So you must understand the pressure that public servants are under, where they can't say anything, they can't do anything that even barely criticizes this government. This is what is happening in this country. And so as a result, you have hundreds of public servants who have been dismissed, they are being demoted, they're being unfairly sent home, they're being sidelined. This is happening on a regular basis. It happened in December, and we had some at the turn of January as well. And if you see the types of letters, the disrespect that is being meted out to workers, never seen before. And you only had a perfect example of that in the Honorable Vance Amrish presentation in Parliament, basically saying that the workers who got sick in the Labour Department, they're only, doing that to embarrass the government. It's a paranoid people. Imagine you as a worker, the minister is saying to you that you are lying about your sickness, even though you have produced medical evidence to show that there is mold in your system. So he's not only challenging the workers and saying, don't bother with them, don't trying to embarrass the government, but he's also challenging the doctors who they went to and who gave them these reports. No respect at all for workers. That is what we're experiencing in this country.
That was Honorable Marcella Liebert. And while business owners operating bars on South Friars will still have to move, they may have a bit more time to properly plan their relocation. The public outcry and advocacy on behalf of the persons operating in the area has spurred the government to intervene. Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris has said while there is little the government can do to prevent the beach establishments having to move, as the lands are privately owned, efforts will be made to negotiate with the landowner to increase the short notice given to the bar owners. The majority of the land on the Southeast Peninsula is privately owned. In January, beach operators received notice that their leases were to be terminated. They were reportedly given just 30 days in which to vacate. This caused concern for the business owners, who have all said while they knew this day would come, the short notice did not allow for them to find places to relocate to. It would also mean that dozens of people will find themselves out of employment for an indeterminate length of time. The business owners, meantime, are being proactive in dealing with the coming change. One of the more popular establishments along South Friars Beach, Shipwreck, has since publicly said while they're examining their options moving forward, they have requested more time to tie up business and move. In the meantime, they will continue to operate as normal. Over the weekend, a local advocacy group, Save Our Beaches in St. Kitts and Nevis, held a rally on South Friars in which organizers sought to raise public awareness of the situation and appeal for authorities to protect the threatened local small businesses. A petition has also been started which will call for the government to end the development on South Friars Beach by outside developers in order to protect the beach and maintain it in its natural state for the enjoyment of locals and tourists alike. The largest of the South Friars bars and restaurants, Carambola, is unaffected by this development and will remain open. It is well known that developers representing the Ritz-Carlton have expressed an interest in starting a major project which will involve both North and South Friars. Construction of the newest hotel is expected to begin this year. While Dr. Harris suggested that the bar owner's plight is inconvenient, he added that the new development will create employment for more than 300 people. Stay with us. Still straight ahead in this evening's presentation of SKN News Now International Developments. At least 40 people have been killed in Syrian and Russian air attacks in the eastern Ghouta near the capital Damascus. Syria's government has also deployed new anti-craft missiles to the front lines in Aleppo and Idlib, where it is battling rebel fighters. The area has seen an escalation in fighting and aerial bombardment in recent weeks, with hundreds of civilians killed. Ziana Kador reports.
Residential areas are often the target. Buildings flattened, civilians killed and injured. Pro-Syrian government forces have been on the offensive into the opposition-held province of Idlib for weeks now. But since fighters from Hayat Tahrir al-Shem shot down a Russian aircraft and killed its pilot, it has escalated. Russian and Syrian aircraft have carried out dozens of airstrikes in a number of towns in the past 48 hours. At least 2 major hospitals have been hit. One of them is now out of service. The assault is being described as one of the fiercest yet. It includes a suspected chlorine attack in the town of Sarakib. Now the Syrian army says it has deployed air defenses and anti-aircraft missiles to the front lines in Aleppo and Idlib to cover the airspace of the north. It says the deployment is a message to everyone.
The S-400 are Russian, and they are controlled by the Russian intelligence, not the Syrian regime. So this is Russia. We need to understand there is an indirect confrontation between the US and Russia. It's dangerous because at the same time Turkey is trying to force its presence in the area.
The deployment of anti-aircraft missiles could also be a message to Turkey. Its planes are using Syrian airspace in its offensive against the Kurdish YPG in Afrin. Turkey had Russian backing to do so, but at the same time, the Syrian government has threatened to shoot down Turkish jets. On the ground, Turkey's army is deployed deep inside Idlib, where it set up posts as part of the Astana de-escalation agreement. Turkish troops are now positioned less than 5 kilometers from pro-Syrian government forces.
The northwestern corner of Syria is now the main battleground. Russia, the United States, Turkey and Iran are the main players. Pro-Syrian government forces want Idlib. Turkey wants to clear Afrin from the YPG. And it's no coincidence that Iran is now calling on Turkey to stop its military operation in Afrin. The players are sending political messages to each other, and it's not the first time they negotiate on the battlefield.
And it's not the first time civilians are the pawns. The other main rebel stronghold in Syria, the Damascus suburb of eastern Ghouta, is also coming under heavy fire. Many civilians have been killed and injured in the besieged area. The United Nations is calling for the fighting throughout Syria to stop for a month to allow aid deliveries and evacuations of the sick and wounded. That call is unlikely to be heeded, at least not until the latest round of negotiations is settled on the ground.
In a surprise court ruling many are calling shocking, the vice chairman of Samsung Electronics has been released from jail. Lee Jae-yong was convicted last year on a number of corruption charges and sentenced to 5 years in prison. Some South Koreans think his release will be good for the economy, while others have criticized the court's leniency, saying if you are rich, you can get out. Natasha Gunham has more on the reactions to the ruling from Seoul, South Korea, where the case was watched very closely.
J.Y. Lee was smiling as he walked out of a Seoul courtroom, out of jail, and back to his life as vice chairman of Samsung Electronics. After a year in prison, an appeals court freed him and dismissed most of the corruption charges against him.
I think if you're rich, you can get out.
For economic reasons, overall, I think it was a good decision.
Lee says he's used his time in jail to reflect.
Again, I feel very sorry to everyone for not showing my best side, and it has been a really precious time for a year reflecting on myself.
The first thing he did after being released was visit his father in hospital. He's been incapacitated for 3 years. Prosecutors say it was Lee's strategy to succeed his father as chairman of Samsung Electronics that got him in trouble. He's one character of many in South Korea's largest corruption scandal in recent memory. It led to millions of Koreans protesting and the impeachment of President Park Geun-hye last year. Prosecutors say Lee paid or promised to pay $40 million to approve a merger of 2 Samsung units. He considered that important to his succession.
Many people got angry about these political economic ties and the political power of the president to use it to personal advantage, and the economic power of Samsung Group uses that kind of opportunity to take the personal advantage, all at the cost of Korean society.
Many hoped Lee's conviction last year would usher in a new era of accountability for big corporations and politicians. Now some are wondering if once again it's simply business as usual.
The decision by the lower court and the appellate court are so different. I'm not sure what is good or bad. But yeah, I'm suspicious about how the decision can be so different.
Lee's lawyers say they'll launch an appeal to dismiss the remaining charges against their client. Now, people are looking at the developments in Lee's case and wondering how it will impact former President Park. She's in jail and in the midst of a corruption trial of her own. A verdict is expected in the coming months.
And still to come in this evening's news presentation, sport, the weather, and Carib update. And in sport news tonight, the West Indies A-team squad for the 3-match test series against England Lions will take place in the Caribbean. The 4-day matches will run from February 11th through to March 1st and will feature a test format game using the pink ball. This will be the final match under lights at the Sir Vivian Richards Cricket Ground in Antigua. Play will start at 2 p.m. The other matches will be Trelawney Multiplex and Sabina Park in Jamaica, where the first ball will be bowled at 11 a.m. The West Indies A-team will be led by left-handed opener Kieran Powell with Shamar Brooks as vice-captain. Following the test, West Indies A will face England Lions in 3 50-over matches at the Coolidge Cricket Ground in Antigua. The squad for these matches will be named at a later date. The full squad is comprised of Kieran Powell, captain, Shamara Brooks, vice-captain, Jermaine Blackwood, John Campbell, Rakeem Cornwall, Miguel Cummings, Shane Dowrich, Jamal Hamilton, Keon Joseph, Jeremiah Lewis, Raymond Rifa, Vishal Singh, and Jomel Warakan. Commenting on the squad, Chairman Courtney Brown said with a strong England Lions team touring the Caribbean, the selection panel felt it was a good opportunity to strengthen the A-team with some test players who will not have the opportunity to play any first-class cricket ahead of the Sri Lanka series. This series, he said, also provides some of the incumbent test players the opportunity to restate a claim for a position in the test match squad for what will be 2 important home series versus Sri Lanka and later on Bangladesh in June and July. The team also includes several players who have been part of the A-team program before and whose performances Cricket West Indies hopes will elevate them to the senior team. And with that look at sport, we now turn attention to this evening's weather forecast. Across St. Kitts and Nevis tonight, we can expect partly cloudy conditions with a 50% or moderate chance of brief showers. Seas are rough with wave heights of 1.8 to 3.1 meters or 6 to 10 feet. Warnings remain in effect for small craft operators and sea bathers against hazardous sea conditions. Winds are east-northeasterly to northeasterly, ranging between 14 to 23 miles per hour and occasionally gusting higher in showers. The sea level pressure is 1,019.6 millibars or 30.11 inches. The sun will rise tomorrow at 6:40 a.m. That look at the weather brings us to the end of this evening's news presentation. Before we go, however, a recap of today's top stories. Nationally, the government heads to court against Dr. Denzel Douglas on February 26th. Internationally, 40 people have been killed in Syrian and Russian air attacks near Damascus. And in sport, the West Indies A-team will play a 3-match Caribbean series against England Lions. I've been your presenter this evening, Ebony Brandon. It was my pleasure being with you. Stay tuned. Up next, Carib Update.